Hi, there are so many stories in the world that I haven't had time to study yet. This channel was created precisely to broaden my horizons, learn interesting facts, gain knowledge, and perhaps even ideas. From you, friends, I only ask for a like for my work, a subscription, and a comment with an opinion about this video. I love you very much, our listeners. I hug everyone. It's time to immerse yourself in history. The history of the Eiffel Tower's origin, from vision to legend. An era of change, Paris on the brink of a miracle. Paris in the 1880s was a city infused with the spirit of change and ambition. It was a time when technological progress, driven by the Industrial Revolution, was altering the very fabric of society. Machines were becoming increasingly complex, and human ingenuity seemed boundless. In this whirlwind of innovation, an important date was approaching, the centenary of the storming of the Bastille, an event that marked the beginning of the French Revolution, 1789 to 1799, and France's transition from monarchy to republic. To commemorate this grand anniversary, the French government decided to hold the 1889 World's Fair, Exposition Universelle, which was to be a triumphant celebration of modernity. Designed as a showcase of achievements in art, architecture, and technology, the fair was meant to demonstrate to the world not only France's industrial might, but also its ideological superiority. In this context, the choice of the main architectural landmark of the exhibition was not merely an aesthetic decision, but a powerful political statement. While many monarchies in Europe, including Great Britain, Belgium, and Germany, officially boycotted the event, unwilling to honor the revolution that had overthrown their royal relatives, France, on the contrary, sought to demonstrate that the new republican form of government was a symbol of the future. Thus, the central monument of the exhibition was to be not just an architectural masterpiece, but also an ideological beacon, a triumph of progress and freedom over outdated traditions. The birth of ambition. The competition and the bold idea. In 1886, Minister of Commerce and Industry Edouard Lockroy announced an open competition, presenting engineers and architects with an unprecedented task: to design a 300-meter tower with a square base of 125 meters for the World's Fair. This was a colossal and audacious undertaking that challenged everything known about construction. Out of 107 projects submitted for the competition, the design proposed by the company of the famous engineer-entrepreneur Gustave Eiffel was unanimously selected. Behind this success lay not only his boldness, but also collective genius. The concept of the tower was initially developed by two of Eiffel's senior engineers, Maurice Koechlin and Émile Nouguier. They conceived the idea of a giant pylon, a lattice structure consisting of 4 separate legs that converged at the top, forming an incredibly strong and stable base. Then, architect Stephen Sylvester joined the team to add aesthetic appeal to the project. At his suggestion, decorative arches were included at the base, glass pavilions on the first level, and other elements designed to make the steel skeleton more acceptable to the conservative, artistic public of Paris. Thus, the tower's design was not the result of a single genius. It was the fruit of the synergy between engineering pragmatism and architectural artistry. Eiffel, being a recognized master of metal structures with experience in building railway bridges and the internal framework of the Statue of Liberty, immediately saw the potential in his engineer's idea. He bought the patent rights from Koechlin and Nouguier and took on the primary financial risk, investing a significant portion of his own funds into the construction. His foresight and courage transformed a brilliant concept into a tangible project, immortalizing Eiffel's name and making him a personal embodiment of the ambitions of an entire era. Ugly skeleton. The great debate on beauty. The reaction to the project was far from enthusiastic. Even before construction began, on February 14, 1887, the newspaper Le Temps published a protest of artists, an open letter signed by leading representatives of the French creative intelligentsia, including writer Alexandre Dumas Fils and Guy de Maupassant. Critics labeled the future monument as a useless and monstrous tower, a giant black factory chimney that would crush and humiliate all historical monuments of the city, from Notre Dame to the Louvre. This was not merely aesthetic aversion, it was a clash of two worldviews. Artists oriented towards tradition, romanticism, and classical forms saw the metal structure as a threat to the very concept of art, embodied in stone and marble. Engineers, driven by logic and functionality, saw in it the beauty of proportions, the strength of progress, and the triumph of industrial aesthetics. The conflict between the old guard and the innovators was reflected in the famous, albeit possibly apocryphal, anecdote about Guy de Maupassant. It is said that he dined daily in a restaurant on the tower itself, as it was the only place in Paris where he could not see it. This episode, though unverified, perfectly conveys the spirit of disdain with which the old world viewed the birth of the new. In response to this criticism, Gustave Eiffel stated that his tower would have its own beauty, akin to that of the Egyptian pyramids, whose grandeur stems from their engineering practicality, not just from decoration. The realization of a dream, a construction that became a legend. Despite the fierce criticism, construction began on January 26, 1887, and was completed in record time, just 2 years, 2 months, and 5 days. This feat was made possible by an unprecedented level of pre-planning and industrial logistics. All 18,000 metal parts of the tower were designed and manufactured at Eiffel's factory in the Paris suburbs with precision to the tenth of a millimeter, then delivered to the site and assembled like a giant constructor. Between 150 and 300 workers were employed on the construction site, with another 150 working at the factory. The entire structure was connected by approximately 2.5 million rivets, of which only a third were installed directly on site. The level of safety achieved was remarkable. Despite the colossal height and risks, only one worker died during construction. Eiffel personally paid great attention to safety, using movable scaffolding, barriers, and nets, which was an incredibly innovative approach for that time. It was a triumph of engineering thought and organization that disproved all skeptical forecasts. By the end of 1888, the main supporting structures were already in place, and the upper levels, which required particularly complex work at height, were completed by March 31, 1889, the day of the official opening. Opening and triumph. The Eiffel Tower was officially opened on March 31, 1889, in the presence of Gustave Eiffel and French officials. As the elevators were not yet ready, Eiffel climbed the stairs to raise the French tricolor above it. Then, on May 15th, it opened its doors to the public as part of the World's Fair. Despite all the critics' concerns, the success was overwhelming. The exhibition attracted over 32 million visitors, and within the first 173 days of operation, more than 2 million people ascended the tower, making it the most popular attraction. What had recently been called a monster instantly transformed into a symbol of the city, proclaiming the triumph of the industrial age and human courage. Legacy and unexpected salvation. The mystery of financing, an unexpected connection to Haiti. One of the least known and perhaps most painful aspects of the Eiffel Tower's history is its financial connection to France's colonial past. According to a 2022 investigation by the New York Times, a significant portion of the funds used to construct the tower came from Haiti. After Haiti gained independence from France in 1804 as a result of a slave uprising, Paris demanded that the young nation pay a staggering indemnity of 150 million francs in 1825 as compensation to former slave owners for the loss of their property. This sum, equivalent to approximately $56 billion today, was unmanageable for Haiti, forcing the country to take loans from French banks. This is where the French bank Credit Industriel et Commercial, CIC, comes into play, which took control of Haiti's national bank in 1880. As a result of neo-colonialism through debt, CIC charged fees on every transaction, siphoning tens of millions of dollars for French investors and leaving Haiti in poverty. Haitian scholar Gary Olius wrote in 2022 that these funds, intended to alleviate Haiti's debt, were directed by CIC to finance various projects in France, including the construction of the Eiffel Tower. Thus, the monument, meant to symbolize freedom and progress for France, was, ironically, partially built on wealth extracted from the world's first independent Black republic. The backup plan. A scientific laboratory at height. The original contract for the construction of the Eiffel Tower was temporary, set for 20 years. This meant that after the World's Fair ended in 1909, it was to be dismantled. However, Gustave Eiffel was determined to save his creation. His plan was simple yet brilliant. He transformed the tower into a grand scientific laboratory, making it indispensable for the future. Already the day after the opening, on May 6, 1889, the first scientific experiments began on the tower. Eiffel personally installed a weather station on the third floor to measure wind speed and atmospheric pressure, even using his own funds to publish meteorological maps. He also showed great interest in the young science of aerodynamics, studying air resistance. From 1903, he began dropping various objects from the tower to measure their speed and resistance, and in 1909, he built an aerodynamic tunnel right at its base. These experiments became foundational for the design of airplane wings and other aerodynamic structures. However, it was radio communication that ultimately saved the tower from demolition. Radio mast, an unexpected salvation. At the end of 1898, Eiffel invited inventor Eugène Ducretet to conduct experiments with radio waves from the third floor of the tower. The first successful wireless messages were transmitted over a distance of 4 kilometers to the Pantheon. Each year, the range of communication increased until, in 1908, the tower began transmitting wireless telegraph signals for military bases and ships over vast distances, reaching even Berlin, Casablanca, and North America. By 1910, the military, recognizing the strategic value of the tower, established a permanent radio station on it, and Paris extended its lease for another 70 years. Shortly thereafter, the tower began transmitting accurate time signals, helping sailors worldwide determine longitude. The tower's unexpected role became vital during World War I. In September 1914, as German troops approached Paris, engineers on the tower intercepted a crucial German radio message that helped the French army repel the advance during the First Battle of the Marne. This allowed Paris to be saved from occupation and proved that the useless monument had become an invaluable strategic asset. Thus, the Eiffel Tower, which had survived fierce debates and nearly fell victim to its temporary status, was saved not only by Gustave Eiffel's genius, but also by the progress of science, which gave it a new, vital purpose. Conclusion: the triumph of ambition and science. The Eiffel Tower is a story of how a bold vision, facing fierce resistance, can not only endure, but also transform into an eternal symbol. Designed as a temporary entrance portal for the 1889 World's Fair, it faced fierce criticism from Parisian artists who saw it as an ugly, industrial skeleton threatening the classical beauty of the city. However, its triumph was inevitable. Built with astonishing precision, and in record time thanks to the innovative engineering solutions of Gustave Eiffel and his team, the tower instantly became the main attraction of the exhibition, drawing millions of visitors. Its success was not only aesthetic, but also symbolic, proclaiming the power of the industrial age and France's technological superiority. The most dramatic turn in its history occurred in the early 20th century, when it faced demolition. But Eiffel, anticipating this scenario, transformed it into a laboratory where groundbreaking experiments in meteorology, aerodynamics, and most importantly, radio communication were conducted. It was this new strategic role as a military radio transmitter that gave it a second life, making it an indispensable asset that played a key role in World War I. Today, the Eiffel Tower is one of the most recognizable symbols in the world, attracting millions of tourists. But its story is not just a tale of beauty and glory. It is a complex and multifaceted saga of the conflict between art and engineering, of the contradictions born from colonial heritage, and of how human ingenuity and foresight can turn a useless creation into an eternal legend. Thank you so much for watching, dear viewers. I really appreciate you. I hope my story was useful to you. It was informative, and you will have something to discuss among yourself in the comments. Unfortunately, I will be there too. I also ask you to subscribe so that you don't miss the following videos. It's even more interesting.